All right. Monday again. Here we are.
It's Monday.
All day.
Power and Speed. 908-751-0211. Do it, Ted.
Do what? Now, of course, like us on Facebook, like us on iTunes. Make sure you do it. We need more people. Share after the show, of course, because we can't share it now. Well, you can share it now, too.
It's rambling.
Anyway, yeah, I'm rambling.
Can't you just write like a script?
That isn't that from the get-go, the whole script thing way back when?
He did it right.
Did you happen to see that thing of that nut job from MSNBC that lost his shit?
Yeah, I did.
I wonder if that's what people think I'm like behind the scenes.
Well, you are.
But it was so funny.
You were last week, actually.
It was so funny with him shaking his hands like Alan.
I know, like Alan. It reminded me of Alan.
I saw that and I was like, oh my God, it's something that they do.
It is. If I was more proficient with, those GIF things, I could have put Alan's face on that guy and it would have been perfect.
We'll have to revisit that for everybody that's listening at some point. Poor Alan.
I'm bummed out. Nobody's wearing their Power and Speed shirts.
Except for you.
Except for me. I'm in uniform.
But that's the color that I wore out in public. So
okay.
That's kind of dorky, dude. Wearing your own shirt to your own show.
Well, it's like a concert. You never wear the band you're going to see.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Tom said. He's like, you're going to put your shirt on? I'm like, no. Like, why would I?
Well, because then you would have looked less like a homeless guy. They would have known it was you.
If looking less homeless was required, I would have risen to the occasion.
Wait,
these are my peoples. They don't care.
Do homeless guys wear Corvette socks?
Sometimes.
I guess so.
Did you see the pictures I sent you?
Which?
About my stupid Corvette wire popping up?
Yeah. What was the last one? Something about maximum
the red wire
power or something?
I swear to God, I was sitting in the driveway talking to Fudd, and you could imagine how that was going.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would do that, but go ahead.
Well, my car protested, and
I'm sure it did.
I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, it just picked up a miss. And I'm like, and I hear this tick, like an audible tick.
Yeah.
Like a spark plug wire off, right?
Well, no, it sounded, I mean, it was loud. It sounded like a valve.
Really?
And it's still running. I open the hood, and I'm looking at the arc jumping right out of the coil. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So I saw that, and it reminded me of a guy that had come into the shop, and I swear this is true. He had his plug wires like tied, like nicely off to the side on an inner fender well. He came in and he said, matter of factly, I need some help. I have too much pressure in my distributor cap. Because he thought his plug wires were getting blown off. So I was going to post that on that site, the engine building thing, and ask what would cause excess coil pressure to see if anybody actually said anything.
Oh, they would.
So I didn't.
Oh, they would.
I didn't have the balls to do it.
That would have been that. I'm pissed that you didn't do that. Because somebody said, oh yeah, depending on what RPM that you run, you could create
due to the ozone buildup of the arcables
creates arcables. Archangels.
But yeah, I thought that was weird, so I just had a little fun with it. And then I went out and I drove it, and I did a little Facebook video thing trying to make that work because I'm not good at it.
Yeah, I saw that, and I watched it for like a minute, and then somebody said, "Are we going to do something here?" And I was like, "Fuck this!" I signed off.
Didn't Dozier say, "Is that the banana hammock?" Or
I don't know. He was just driving around normal.
Well, it's because I could. What am I going to do on my fucking road here? Fucking hammer it in a bit of fucking woods.
Well, that's what everybody was waiting for.
Yeah, it's not happening.
You're doing a live video.
But
you could have been riding a horse for that matter.
Well, that's what I just wanted to see if it was any better, and it runs exactly the same. I'm sure that plug wire was bad for a long time, so it was really shitty inside.
Isn't that why they used to drill distributor caps?
Not for pressure.
For the pressure?
Oh, come on.
I thought it was for the pressure.
It had to be.
No, it's for ozone.
Yeah, I know.
Especially when you put an MSD box on, there's got to be a lot of pressure.
Tons of pressure.
I mean, that's the thing that people didn't realize happened either. I mean, for the longest time, vented distributor caps, they had no idea why. And we used to drill caps, and people would be like, what do you do that for? Because they found out early on that you put a 7 Series box and a regular small distributor cap, and the thing would fill up with ozone. The cap would light up like a Christmas tree, and it would be a mess. Come back to the staging lanes, it's fine. Air it out. So, I don't know. I thought it was fine. I was going to do that to the core engine building guys. But
you could still do it.
I just couldn't.
Somebody will answer. So, anything exciting? There was a NASCAR race. All right, never mind.
Listen, we can't go down that road because that leads specifically into another conversation I don't want to have because I'm really actually...
What, did nobody knelt at the NASCAR race?
Don't listen. No more political stuff for me. Football was like an escape. where like it didn't, like there was that one retard who wouldn't,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Now it's everywhere.
Yep. But
That-
it used to be an escape. College football, man. You got to watch. I told you that long ago. You got to watch college football. Kids want to play.
You're not the first person that said that, but you know, I used to enjoy like Sunday doing kind of nothing.
I know. You would get pissed when I'd call you. You'd be like, hello, well, I'm watching the Jets.
And it was, well, that was always, well, that's why I was mad.
And I know. I'd be like, why would you watch the Jets?
But it was great because John gambled on everybody, so I could watch it and watch him lose money. Like it was hilarious. He was so bad at it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of worth doing back then.
Yeah.
But
Not now.
not now, not even close.
All right. No politics.
No politics. We're done with that.
Well, is the thing that I saw anything with politics with the Greenpeace going after the diesels on the?
No, I think that's just hilarious. You got to tell that story real quick, and
It's-
then we have Jake on here. So go ahead. Tell that story.
Greenpeace normally goes after the whaling ships or whatever, and I guess they had none to chase, so they chased a Volkswagen, a container ship loaded with Volkswagen diesel cars. And when they got there to drop them off, they were climbing the fences, taking all the keys out of the cars and putting stickers on, stop killing the earth, putting smog in the air. And I was like,
Yeah. I'm not so sure that is 100% true.
Really? Because boy, it sure sounds like something some of those retards
I know
would
it
do,
had-
wouldn't it?
they got the video of them climbing the fence and all the.
I know. I saw all that. But I mean, you own a ship, right? You're a ship guy. How do you let people who are essentially now pirates jump on your ship and start stealing parts of your cargo? I mean, I know if that was my ship,
Oh yeah,
Be shooting them.
yeah, I'd be feeding
Harpoon guns,
Because
whatever was handy.
clip after clip into the
you don't
AR,
know
right?
if they're pirates or what the hell they're doing. They're not trying to board your
they're
ship.
not supposed to be
Yeah.
on the ship.
They're trying to board your ship.
Anyway,
If that really is true, that is funny. Have they really gone to that level of nuts that they went after? I mean, I can understand being upset with Volkswagens kind of in general, but I mean, that was pretty good.
Oh, my one friend, he put it. Somebody got on there and said, "I'm intolerant to diesel smoke."
Okay.
And it's like, okay, so where do you get your food from? Because that's shipped in a diesel truck to your supermarket. So are you that far against diesel that you'd rather starve? It's like, anyway.
people.
Yeah.
You better answer somebody. The phones are
Sometimes
lit
the
up.
story just goes a little too far, Ted. Yo, man. Jake,
Hello.
what's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
Now, I don't know if everybody was listening last week, but we had kind of a tight timetable, and we had to get out of here like when we were done. And poor Jake called in, and we wanted to talk about his whole story. So, Jake, tell us who you are. And I was just talking to Casey before. Casey wanted me to.
Donworth?
Yep, want to remind you that you look like Ricky Bobby chasing your car.
It was quite the experience. I was gonna say it's nothing I've ever experienced before like that. It was a normal pass. It was the third round of cots, and top end. All of a sudden, there's a big flame underneath the hood, and at first it wasn't too bad, and then all of a sudden it just got huge.
Now, was there an associated backfire or anything, or did it just
Nope.
ignite?
It was an injector O-ring, and I'm guessing the headers caught it on fire. And my guess, I would think, because everything, motor turned over, everything seems fine with the car right now, other than it's burnt to a crisp. But we found a couple injector O-rings popped out, and there was no bang or backfire or anything like that inside the car. It just erupted into flames, and like I said, it started off as a small little flame, and then all of a sudden it just got big.
Did it
Wow.
make it into the interior or?
Yeah, a lot of people on the internet said it burned through the firewall, whatnot.
I don't
It
see that.
what it did is, if I run a 5.5, 6-inch cowl hood, it literally burned through the Lexan window underneath the cowl hood into the car.
All right.
And that's
Oh,
all-
so the cowl hood made a path
Yeah.
up to the windshield.
Yep.
like a volute.
Yeah,
I had to
pretty
get
much.
it
Keep fucking me, Tom.
in.
So the car, now I heard you, I watched the video on 1320. Is the car kind of a loss, or is it salvageable?
No, it's salvageable. The one, because I obviously bailed out of the car. It got too warm, and I wasn't about to get burned. But I wasn't going as fast as what I was told when I finally watched the video, because I don't remember taking my steering wheel off or taking the window net down. And I remember jumping out of the car, and after that, I bits and pieces. I don't know if it's just adrenaline or what. I didn't hit my head or anything like that, but watching the video, I wasn't going that fast. Hit the ground and looked like I tumbled a little bit, and I got right back up and started running.
How fast were you going?
I would say probably 20, 30 miles an hour.
Oh, okay.
I heard the 100, and I was like, screw that.
Yeah, the story was 100.
I've fallen off shit at like 100.
Yeah.
And it's not
Well,
good.
I would say normally just going through the quarter coast, and the car is probably going 140, 150 with the parachute out. So I was on the brakes pretty hard, but by the time, I jumped out past the quarter mile watching the video and everything else. So I was probably, I'd say 30 miles an hour.
Well, I guess you must have had decent safety equipment, because if it was warm enough that it was bothering you, but you're not hurt, it must have done its job pretty well.
Yeah, I have SFI 20 fire suit, so it's the higher the highest of the SFI ratings for fire equipment. The tops of my gloves started to burn, and it's just one of the hardest things about it was not being able to breathe, because I did pull the fire system while I was still moving, but and it just sucked all the air out of the car, and that's probably one of the hardest parts about it, is not being able to breathe. Then the flames started coming in. It got really hot, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I'm not gonna make it out of here unless I get out of here right now, because everyone says you're supposed to stop the car, come to a complete stop, then pull the fire system, everything like that, and you're supposed to let the fire suit do its job. Well, my gloves are already starting to burn, and I wasn't even at a complete stop yet. So obviously, if I would have just stayed in the car and let everything keep burning, I'm imagining my hands probably would have ended up burning.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that's easier said than done. Could you imagine being in a fire? Just if you were surrounded by fire and just feeling warm, your brain would just, I don't know how you could ever prepare for that. That's
well, I think your brain would get you out of there like he did.
No, I'd be out.
Yeah, you start looking for an escape right away.
Absolutely. It was pretty intense.
Fudd would stay.
I've never experienced anything like it, and I hope no one has to.
Hope not to again, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a good testament to the safety equipment, and it's a good testament to, everything like this that happens to anybody, whether it's one of our friends, a fellow racer, or yourselves. I would like to think that everybody learns a little bit from this. That's how safety evolved.
Yep.
To figure out how to better protect yourself from the things that we could never really see
that we don't
happen.
want to happen, but they do.
Absolutely. One of the major things we're going to do to the car over winter is put a fuel shutoff on it, between the pump and the fuel cell, and actually have a lever inside the car that I can turn the fuel pump on and off, because it's a mechanical pump.
Drag race cars don't have that, huh? I never realized that.
No, like in a cup car, they got that cable deal.
Yeah.
That shuts
Yeah,
off.
some of
all
the blown
cars
alcohol cars do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know this will make all the idiots that are listening online drink when I say something about Circle Track, but all the Circle Track cars, you got to have a fuel shutoff in the car.
Yep.
You got to have
Yeah.
them.
Yep. They just did a shot.
If I would have had that in the car, it wouldn't have been near as bad. Because, normally after a pass, I probably have about 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons of alcohol left in it, in the fuel cell, and I had probably a cup left. So it pumped roughly 1.5 gallons on top of the motor and just kept fueling the fire.
Yeah, not good. Well, it's a good thing you're okay. Well, the most important thing is, what can people do to support you and try to give you a little bit of help here?
5252's started like a little campaign for selling shirts and whatnot for us, and anything, if you go buy a hat, a shirt, whatever, anything helps, because it's just me and my brother doing this. We don't have any super major sponsors. A couple people that help us, Race the North, 5252, and a couple others, but majority of it is us, campaigning around the country, trying to do the best we can, and this has been devastating, obviously, because basically from half the car forward is a complete loss.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Yeah, well.
So it's looking like the engine's going to be okay. It definitely needs to be cleaned up. It looks like a mess. But all the wiring, all the sensors, everything else is junk. Front struts, the knobs are melted right off of them.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
But, it's part of the sport, too, so.
Well, look, man, more than anything, we're glad you're okay.
Yep.
We're glad you're planning on coming back. And, listen, the best thing you could do to me is share your experience to everybody that'll listen, so they don't think, well, it's one quick test pass and don't put a jacket on or don't put their gloves on, because that would have been catastrophic.
Oh, absolutely. I was gonna say, and we've already said a lot of tracks that don't have any kind of a fire crew or anything like that, and I'm just thankful Great Lakes Dragway at least had a fire truck with the actual fire hose and everything else, and they could put the fire out in somewhat timely fashion. If it was anywhere else, it would have burned out till it just burned out.
Yeah, dicking around portable fire extinguishers and stuff. Yeah, I hear you.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, man. Well, look, glad you're okay.
Yeah,
and
good luck going forward.
Everybody go over there and, buy a damn hat. Help the guy out, will you?
Appreciate it, guys.
You're welcome. I'll see you, man.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Thanks.
I would never want to be in a fire. That's probably the worst thing.
Yeah.
Well, I was even thinking if it was a methanol. Luckily, the hood gave color to the flame or something burning, because otherwise it's an invisible flame.
Yeah.
And think about it. So all of a sudden you got heat. Where's it coming from if you can't see it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, not something I'd ever want to experience. But boy, out of all the stuff, the fire stuff, that's probably the most important, I think. I mean,
agree.
like the impact, seat belts, everything else. But man, I can't think of a really much worse thing that could happen than burning alive.
No.
Oof. Joe Rivera from ProTorque. How are you?
Yo, what's up, guys?
What's going on?
What's going on, Joe? How you been, man?
Every day's a joy, just living a dream, boys. I believe that shit.
That's good.
Especially Mondays.
The other days we just keep working towards it, right?
That's right.
Well,
What's going on?
Well, what we'd like you to do, Joe, is explain to the people that don't know who you are, and I can't imagine there's many, who ProTorque is, how it got started, and how you got to where you are today. A condensed version, obviously. We don't need to hear I was born back in...
Yeah, your kindergarten teacher, any of that stuff.
Well, I'll be damned if I know how I got here, because I wake up in the morning and go, what the hell did I do right, and what the hell did I do wrong? Some days I get up and go, I can't believe I have to pinch myself. Like, I never even slept last night because I spent all weekend watching the NMCA, and unfortunately I couldn't be there. We took Team ProTorque. We call it Team ProTorque. The guys that we work with, they took 5 championships yesterday at NMCA. So I'm out of my mind happy, and I go, I can't believe that I get to do this every day. And then I got to do payroll, the middle of the week. And I go, I can't believe I have to do this every day. So it's like so my life is kind of, you got to be careful what you wish for. You might get it. I wanted to be the best in the world at what I did. Arguably, we can say in certain genres of racing, I've been able to do that. In racing, we have a quantifiable method to prove, hey, product A is better than product B, because we have a method, we have a testing method, and it's pretty accurate. So yeah, I wanted to be the best. I should have maybe wanted to be the most profitable. I haven't really done that yet, but we'll figure that part out. I mean, I'll be 49 in November, so I got like another 50 years to figure this shit out, right?
Easily.
All right, so we'll get it done. But so to answer the question, ProTorque was a family-built business. It's a business that I started with my father in 85-ish. We were a mom-and-pop rebuilder. We rebuilt torque converters for transmission shops. I've been doing this my whole life. And then from there, we became mom-and-pop to local to regional to national. And, to make a very long story short, I got super involved with the trade associations, and I got super involved with just the craft in which I was doing. I became the president of the trade association, TCRA, which is Torque Converters Rebuilders Association. That and a token will get me on the subway, but I was involved. I wrote a lot of publications, a lot of tech articles, a lot of for the trade publications like Gears and Trans Digest. And that's how I started my career. We were mom and pop. Over my 30-plus years, I've probably built just under 1 million torque converters. I think a lot of people don't. They know me or ProTorque from the performance market. But really, I've done everything from 7-inch conveyor belt torque converters to 36-inch jet engine starters. I mean, industrials, overdrive, you name it, we did it. But recently, very recently, as in about a year ago, we made some major direction change. Sold off the OE portion of my business, moved into a little bit smaller but super high tech facility. Like a mad scientist lab type of deal. And all I do now is performance products. I've opted to get out of that portion of the business and now focus and maybe kind of exploit some of the experience that we've got over the last several years, last 25 years in racing and performance, and start exploiting that just to really start working on performance products only. And that was about a year ago. We moved into the new facility. Oh, and by the way, is Tom Rosano on here?
Yeah.
Yep.
Tom, what's up, man?
How you been, dude?
So, Tom, good. Tom actually went to my shop a long time ago.
Yep.
And he knows that we were doing thousands of torque. I mean, at that point, Tom, I was probably doing like 27,000 converters a year.
Yeah, it was crazy
total. Yeah. Do the math on that. And so you have to come and check out the new place. But the new place, I would say, I lost the fourth quarter with the change and the move, and so I look at my start date in the new place as January 1, and it's been one hell of a year. Now, is this a family show? I don't mean to say.
No, you can pretty much say whatever you want. We don't care.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, good.
Yeah, so don't.
Have at it. We've had Long Islanders on before.
Oh, so we get dirty mouths.
Oh yeah. Come on, we're from New Jersey. Kidding me?
Yeah, I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything I can, just not to curse right now in the first 5 minutes.
No, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
No, you'll be okay.
So from the performance standpoint, is there a specialty that you guys have focused in on, or is it all things performance converters from newer, more modern stuff to pro mod stuff? What's the range that you guys run?
All right. Now I'm going to make this statement. I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to make this statement. And I made this statement today on my live race report video on Facebook. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And as a company and as a human being, I want to stay on the line of confidence. I mean, I'm confident. I don't want to be arrogant. But what I'm about to say to you might sound arrogant if you don't know who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish. My mindset is, and always will be, we can always make some car better. I don't care what car it is. I don't care if it's your 300 horsepower street car or your 4,500 horsepower pro mod, or it's your half mile road racer, or if it's your pro touring Camaro. I believe that we can make it faster. So we literally do everything. So my focus when I moved into this new deal, ProTorque Performance Products is what it's called now, is we're going to focus on picking all types of cars up. I mean, I've got a bunch of new products that are coming out. We've got a bunch of product lines that are pretty steady. I think a lot of people probably know us, which is kind of crazy or silly, from what we did in racing. And I think the general public probably heard of us through Street Outlaws. I mean, it's kind of funny because everything that we've done in racing, we held a bunch of records with a bunch of guys, and it's been pretty cool. I've been pretty happy about it. We kind of upset Turbo Racing 7-8 years ago. We were holding the NHRA record for a long time. We've held X275 records, Outlaw 10.5 records, Pro Mod records, drag radial records. That's where kind of my heart is, drag radial. We do all that. That's great. But we also do LSX turbos, and we also do, they did an article on us in Hot Rod magazine. We had the Hot Rod Car of the Year back 20 years ago, and they just brought this up. Like, the first LS-based motor in Steve Spalaggio's Hot Rod of the Year was a little 32 coupe. This guy had an LS-X engine with a 4L80E combination before anybody in the world. GM gave this guy this motor 20 years ago. And so we do everything. So there is no one specific. I think people, some people know us from certain genres and some people know us from other genres. But I think, we can and will pick up every single car that we work on.
Okay.
It's funny. I got to say, I haven't been there it's probably 10 years, Joe, right?
Oh, it's gotta be.
Yeah. It's like 10 years. And that's pretty much what you said to me when I was out there. We were just bullshitting about stuff. And he said, all we try to do is pick up any car, and we think we can.
Yeah, but if you think you can't, then you're saying that something is perfect.
I know.
Nothing's perfect.
Well, I know.
It could always be better.
It's kind of like going drag week and saying you're going to win.
No.
No?
Or dominate.
Sorry. Did I say that?
At least I'm consistent, right?
No, you are. I like it. I agree.
It's a direction.
It's a good one, and I think you're doing your job pretty well too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, and you know what? We have been able to pick up cars, and a lot of it is through, I'm really blessed in the fact, and my wife looks at me every time I say that, and she goes, "Oh, dude, that is so overused," but it's the truth. Who the fuck? Oh, I'm sorry. Who?
No, it's good. Loosen up.
Who gets to do what I do? Nobody. I mean, there's a handful of I have a handful of peers that really understand what they're doing, and I love to work with them. And friendly, and that's great. But who gets to do what I do? I mean, nobody. It's the coolest shit in the world. I have the great benefit of economics of volume. I tell everybody, I look at their data and we go over what's going on with their car and what it's doing, and I tell everybody, listen, I'm like your criminal attorney or your priest or your tax accountant. What you say stays with me and it goes nowhere else. And I don't think that I would ever be able to do what I do if I was spouting everybody's shit and telling everybody what everybody's doing.
Of course.
But I get to work with all these individual cars, and I get the great economic of volume to know how cars run, and I get to work with some of the fastest cars, and not just drag racing, like half-mile cars and mile cars and street rods, and I mean, shit, all kinds of cars. It's really cool.
Now, I know you said you do kind of anything that you could make better. Like, does this include like 8-speed stuff, 10-speed stuff, or realistically is converter principle?
Abso-fucking-lutely. We're working on right now, and we do right now the 8 HP 70s and 90s for the Hellcats. I think what a lot of racers don't know is that we do a lot of late model overdrive performance converters. I mean, that's really where I cut my teeth. I mean, I was building 4L60s and 204Rs back in the 80s and early 90s when nobody in the world was doing that shit. The same thing. I was doing diesel performance before diesel and performance were in a sentence together. I mean, the only way you would use diesel and performance was, I have a diesel truck that tows my performance car. That was it. Yeah. We were doing that. And as a matter of fact, I had mentioned that you guys had Kenny Duttweiler on here, and dude, he's like my hero. That man, I can't even shine his shoes. I had the great opportunity to work with Kenny like a bunch of years ago. He is one of the guys that got me into doing full-on performance. And the way that happened was through a friend of mine, Len Emanuelson, who had a PR company and was the managing editor of Motor Trend magazine. He kind of got us hooked up together because he was trying to get a converter for his diesel truck in like 95 and 96. And I did that for him. And he had sent it to a bunch of big companies, well-known companies, and he couldn't get it done. And he sent it to us and got it done. He's like, son, what else can you do? And that's what started. We had a John Galina's Super Stock first in the 7s, like, I don't know, in the early 90s. So, I mean, yeah, we didn't just crawl out from under a rock. I've been doing this shit for a long time. Yep. It was just kind of a hobby. It wasn't, it was a thing that kept the hamster in the wheel in my little pea brain happy, because you're building thousands of torque converters. You're like, all right, they're all the fucking same. Well, what's going to make me happy? So this racing stuff was kind of like a bad crack habit, All right, maybe it wasn't a crack habit, but it was like a bad drinking problem. And I just kept doing it and doing it. And I never went to rehab, and here I am.
All right, well, listen, we got a guy that you knew was calling out, Reese. Should I bring him in?
Absolutely. Please and thank you.
Hang on a second. Reese, you there, buddy?
I am here, my friend.
All right, we got you and Joe is on the other line. Mike, Tad, and Tom here.
Yep.
Hi, Tom. Nice to meet you.
What's up?
Hey, man.
What's up, Joe?
Mikey?
Are you reaching through me on this to tell me I got the wrong stator in?
No, you had the right stator. But I had to let you figure that out for yourself, and I'm all good with it. Hey, I don't know if anybody knows, Mikey Reese is he is Nicole Priola's bitch. He's the guy in charge of doing all the work. She's the hot rod driver, right? He has this gold Camaro, which I love. I've always loved. It's a ProTorque Camaro. Mikey works on Troy Coughlin's Pro Mod team. I think you got to drive the boss's ride this weekend, right?
Yeah, I did. I did get to play with that thing a little bit this weekend. We were testing a little bit of stuff for St. Louis coming up. ProMod, NHRA.
That sounds like fun.
So
Oh.
yeah, so Mikey is a crew member, works with the Turbo God, right? The king of turbos, which is Steve Petty.
Yes, I do. I'm fortunate of that.
Yeah, Daddy. I
gotta add. I gotta rub Nicole's feet before she gets in the car every time. She's a princess. I gotta rub her feet.
I mean, that to me that makes sense.
Well, I was laughing at your video this morning on Facebook that you posted, and you're 100% right. There's no testosterone, and she just goes out and drives the car, and she does a good job doing it.
Well, let me tell these guys what I said. I don't know if any of you caught the live race report this morning. I love female drivers. We've had the great opportunity to work with a lot of really, really good female drivers. Melanie Troxel, Leah Pritchett, Erica Enders. They were in Pro Mods. But there's lots of other female drivers that we've worked with, and of course the list is going to cut me loose. Mary Balswell also this weekend. But the thing about female drivers that I like is that they don't have all this testosterone clogging everything up. They've got a job to do. They get in there and they do it, and really a lot of these female drivers do a great job. And trust me, I was born. I have 3 sisters. I've got 3 daughters. I've got a ton of aunts. I mean, I'm all pro female. Like I'm not a chauvinist at all, and I'm not saying I'm a sexist. I'm just saying that they do a fabulous job, and it's because they don't have the testosterone jacking their shit up all the time. They get in there, do the job, and they get out. There's some other people like Melanie Salemi. I know John a long time. We're not in that program right now, but I look at how she's doing. They do great. They do really great. So I'm stoked for Nicole.
Well, and I'd be willing to bet that all these women in your life are a lot lighter than you are. So when we're trying to run a lot lighter. So when we're trying to run at a minimum weight, Nicole already takes the cake on me.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have like 60 pounds ahead.
Probably a lot more than that. You brought up the Salemi deal, and John. I don't know John very well, and I've never really talked to Melanie, but we're kind of bottom feeders, Nicole and I, as far as getting into the game of this stuff, and they're a huge inspiration to us, and it's kind of a deal where I want to see Nicole excel, and I really kind of want to focus on the tuning and getting the stuff to work, and she just drives it, and I think that's cool. You know what I mean? I think that's probably maybe a bit of a dying breed. It is. And maybe for listeners to fill them in, I mean, we're going to get married next year, but she's my fiance. She's been through me, through thick and thin, and believes in me, and this is kind of my way of giving back. So it's cool to see that. And
good for you. You know what, bud? I mentioned in the race report, couples, right?
Are we going to get into couples therapy on our show?
Yeah. I mean, I got feelings. I got feelings.
All right, have at it.
Can I run this on and get a soda?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
You guys better be funnier because you got the whole audience.
All right. Well, listen. The reality is, it's not about racing. Let's put the bullshit to the side. It's about relationships, and this is my argument. And all right, if you're not feeling all warm and fuzzy about what I'm saying, then you go take a piss. I don't care. The reality is, racing is fun. It's great. Okay, cool. But it's not a singular sport. It really is a team sport, and it's really about relationships. These races, I say, we won championships. Dude, I'm one little fucking part in a car. I'm nothing. Nobody even sees my shit. But you know what? It's the relationships I have with the guys that I work with that allow me to develop product. And it's the relationships that Mikey Reese has with the people around him. It's not about Mikey Reese. It's not about Nicole Priola. And listen, congratulations. I'm stoked that you guys get married, but it's about your relationship. And it's not just their relationship. It's about his relationship with Steve. It's about his relationship with Troy. That's what he's gained all this knowledge. And yeah, now we're using this knowledge. He's using the knowledge. You're not bottom feeders. That's ridiculous. All the guys that are at the highest levels, they all came from the lowest levels. Me specifically. I mean, I'm a grunt. I've always been a grunt. I'm always going to be a grunt. As a matter of fact, I like being a grunt. So back to the feelings things, it's about relationships. You got a bunch of couples that are, Billy Glidden and his wife. They're a team. Mikey and his wife. They're a team.
All right, wait. I got to call timeout. I got to reel this in a little bit. Sorry.
Reel it in.
Because we got a chat room with
people
70 people
Dr.
in it.
Phil here.
And somebody just said, I'm taking a knee.
Anybody ever asks a question like, hey, what do I do about my husband snores? What do I do?
Yeah.
I'm just done.
We need to talk about torque converters here, man.
Let's talk about some feelings.
Actually,
We want to talk about torque converters, and we think we got a guy that knows about them. We got a guy?
that would be Joe.
That's him.
All right. Well, I'd like to, Michael, if you could get my number from Joe, I'd like you to call in to me personally. He'll give you my cell phone number, and we can talk about a couple other things for interview process.
Yeah, like couples therapy.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, being serious.
Hey, Shane T. Hey, Joe, you know Shane T, right?
So we're friends now.
Shane T.
Of course you do.
Kidding me?
He wants to know if you build Dodge diesel truck converters.
I know you want to talk about torque converters, and I'm going to tell you, I love Shane T.
Everybody loves Shane T.
What people don't know about Shane T. Everybody, hold on. Shane T. is a fabulous singer.
You're killing me, man.
Does anybody know that? Did you guys? No. Did you guys? Mikey,
And he's a great cook.
Joe, I lived with Shane for about 50 days over with the Ecanu group.
This better not be going to the couples therapy thing, or I'm going to punch out.
No, I'm serious.
He said lived, not slept.
Okay.
Separate rooms, all meant. But Shane's a really fun guy. He's smart, very smart guy. He's taught me a lot. And I always have to tell Shane, I said, dumb it down for me. You're getting too far away from me. So I'm all for listening to that. But it's going to be probably about an hour interview with Shane. I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Shane knows math.
Yeah, we've had Shane on, and Shane just said that he's going to take a knee now because you guys are killing him.
He's gonna what?
He's going to take a knee. That's that's what everybody's doing now, taking a knee. In case you guys
maybe nothing like a snowflake.
All right. Well,
he just ran off to grab another beer. He'll be ready.
all right. Well,
He'll be ready for the interview.
look, Mike, we're gonna let you go, but I want you to get my number from Joe. This is Mike, and give me a call, and we're gonna talk about a few things that I think that we could do here. I think it'd be good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Love you, Mikey. Put your stator in, please.
It's a lot of love here tonight.
All right. See you, Mike. All right. Now can we talk about torque converters?
I hope so.
All right, let's go.
Christ.
Talk tech. Come on.
Okay.
But wait, we got another guy on hold. Did Joe have somebody else calling?
I don't know.
Joe, did you interview anybody else to call the show?
No, not at all.
Should we get this guy just to see what's going on? Hey, let's grab him. You are on with us, sir. Who are you, and what can we do for you?
Mark.
Or is he just
Hello.
listening?
Yes.
There you are.
This is Greg, Seth Hunter, and Mark Luton. We're on our way back. We're a couple of the guys that run Joe's stuff in NMCA.
Oh, okay.
So he's helped out our program quite a bit.
What kind of car do you guys have?
We run the modular powered Pro Mod cars that run an NMCA with the Coyote-based engines in them.
Aha. And you guys are from California?
From California, yeah. We're actually driving through a rainstorm on our way back right now, but we made it to the final this weekend, so that makes the drive home a little more tolerable.
I recognize that name, that MMR name, from somewhere. I can't place it.
Put this into perspective. These guys are running like a Briggs and Stratton motor, right? It's about that big.
Yep.
And they're killing it. They just run. Greg, do you guys run first to the 200 mile per hour?
We've been 387 at 200 miles an hour today, 200.5.
What's the cubic inch on that thing? 350
cubic inches.
Ding, 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 ding. Compared compared to everything they're up against, they're probably just shy of half the size.
We're like some of these nitrous guys. Our engine isn't even the entire engine isn't the same as half one of their banks. These 900 cubic inch guys we're not even half that. But we've got a good combination with torque converter and turbo that allows us to make it work. It's a testament to what Joe tells you. We've kind of gone through a few different stators and a few different deals with his stuff, and we just send him the data, and he goes, well, we can make it better. I guess this weekend is a perfect testament to that. As far as we spoke to him the week before, made a couple of changes on both cars, put a new converter in one and a new stator in the other one. We went out and went as fast as we've ever gone with one car and went to the final with the other one. So when he tells you to look at your data and make it better, that there's always room for improvement, he's not bullshit.
Well, I think any racer that ever thinks that I'm good enough, they're the guys that lose next week. You can't ever really think that way. You can't.
No. When you your competition's always working harder than you are. At least that's the way that you have to think about it. If you ever sit down on the sidelines and think that you've done enough, you're only going to get passed up.
For sure.
Amen. Amen. And these guys are a testament for doing. They're doing more with less. And I'm always about I'm not cheap. I don't like to waste. So these guys are not wasting. They're it's all about volumetric efficiency. It's all about doing more with less, and it's all about using what you have. And these guys do a great job of that. And yeah, and I think Greg brings up a pretty valid point. And I mentioned before about the economics of volume, right? So I get to see how lots of different cars run, and I get to see we get to quantify the changes. So we go, all right, Greg, hey, it's doing this. I wanted to do that. All right, well, I'm going to send you the stator. Why don't you do this, and let's bring the pressure here. Let's put a little more power there, and let's see if we can get you past this zone that you're struggling with. And the number one key important thing to me is data. I'm of the mindset that we can pick every car up, but the only way we do that is there are no decisions without data. So what I became really good at, or mildly successful at, we'll call, is reading data. We got information, things like Race Pack and Fuel Tech and Big Stuff and Haul Tech and all these software companies that we're reading all the information that we're getting from the end user, whether it be a 9-second street car or a 200 mile an hour, 350 cubic inch Pro Mod. We look at the information and we decide what the car needs. I don't decide alone. I'm not a magician. It's just conversation. We go back, not to go back to relationships, but it's really about relationships. We can build the best product. We can hand it to a guy and it won't work with a shit. The only way that it's going to work is if we have some dialogue and some communication and a good relationship. They've got to trust me. I've got to trust them. And ultimately, we're going to have good results. But that's all through data acquisition. Mm-hmm. I would be absolutely nothing. I'm not sure that I'm anything now, but I would be less than what I am now if I wasn't able to read the data and make decisions based off of data. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. From
the whole standpoint here, no matter what displacement or what type of motor that the guy is working with, that you're working with him, I would imagine that just about every piece of data you get from everyone else, it somehow or another fills in one essential master table or master database that you can pull from experience. I had something that behaved this way this many years ago that I could say was similar. Mm-hmm. And then it allows you to extend your depth, is I guess the best way that I would say it.
Correct. Let me give you another example. And again, one thing I tell everybody is that I'm never going to discuss anybody's program with anybody else. And that makes me kind of like the clutch guy on everybody's team. But I don't talk to anybody. But if they tell me what they want, I tell them how to accomplish it. And everybody approaches it differently. I'll mention somebody right now. Josh Kluger just won the Radial Wars championship. And that was a really highly contested. You had David Adkins, you had Mills, you had Kluger, you had Stennett. They were all in the running for the points. And I work with every one of these teams. I don't talk to them about what everybody else is doing, but I do what they ask. And you got guys like John Maguda and really my hero, the guy that I love so much that allowed us to work on a lot of these programs is Jamie Miller and Kevin Fiskus. And that program, they got a great program. And they say, hey, I need this car to do this. Okay. Or Jamie says to me, yeah, this looks good, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I go, okay, here's what I do. And we send them a part, or we send them a converter, or we send them a stator, and we put it in and we look at the data, and it works or it doesn't work. And in this case, it's working pretty good, and they won the championship. They had just made a stator change, I don't know, like maybe a month ago. Kluger made a change. John had gotten a hold of me, and he's like, hey, we need to make a change. Can you get it to me? We overnighted it. Of course, we overnighted it to the wrong place, I think. And boom, there you go. And they've got the championship in the bag. So I'm pretty stoked for those guys. But, yeah, it's about relationships. The whole story, the end of the day, it's about relationships. It's not about my product. It's about my relationships with the people that we sell product to.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Well, it's got to be a little bit about your product too, buddy. It just has to be. It has to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, the product has to be there, but the product wouldn't have been there if I didn't have the relationships.
Chicken or egg. Yep, I get it.
Wow.
We've had the great opportunity to work with a lot of good guys. It's their intelligence, it's their know-how, it's their, compilation of information, their compiled intelligence that allowed me to do some of the stuff that we do. I have to pinch myself some days.
All right.
Because I'm lucky. Super lucky to be able to work with everybody.
Well, what we want to get into is some of the finer points of this. And I mean, certainly we would never ask anybody to give up trade secrets and things that have made improvements and things that you found that, maybe we could, whatever you can discuss, and again, I never put somebody in a position, I don't think any of us would, to give up some kind of secret. But when we talk about things like changing stators, we talk, like I had actually had a conversation with Anthony DeSoma about different ways to bleed pressure or restrict pressure to the converter. There's a lot of things from the technical side that I think a lot of our listeners would like to know more about. And
right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of torque converters and the technical end of it, right?
Okay, well,
I'm not just a pretty face and a funny guy. I know a couple things about torque converters.
Right. Well, let's start here. When we're talking about the converter.
Not even a pretty face.
Say what?
And he's not even a pretty face, really. I mean, if we wanted to be honest about it.
He's kind of cute.
That's the truth.
One more thing before I go that I wanted to say is, it's a testament to what Joe knows as far as how our car runs. With such a small motor that can bring up 88 millimeter turbos, it's still raceable. It's in there, and he talks about sharing information and sharing data. Let's say even if he did, it's one piece to the puzzle. You know what? I could take our engine and give it to somebody, and they're not going to run as fast as we are with it.
Amen.
You could take ProLine's engine and give it to anybody out there on the market. You can give them the engine, you can give them the converter, you can give them all the pieces to the puzzle. It's still, without the know-how to make it all work, it doesn't make any difference. So the data is what makes the difference. And I think, it's testament to Joe's got the entire spectrum covered, from the little small cubic inch big horsepower stuff to the big cubic inch big horsepower stuff. He can ProTorque can make it work for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd like you to get my number from Joe and reach back out and touch with me, and we'll try to figure out what we can do with you at a future date too. I think there'd be some good stuff here. Okay?
Perfect.
All right, man.
Well, you guys have a good evening. We'll continue listening.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Now we can talk about torque converters.
Let's do it.
Got a lot of fans. That's good for him.
Yeah.
So here we go. Let's talk about torque converters in the most basic form, right?
Yep. That's what we need.
A torque converter is a fluid coupling device, and its job is to transfer power from the engine to the transmission, and it does that hydraulically. And so torque converters are not new. They're, I think like early 40s, late 50s, and they've been around a long time. I was lucky enough to, my dad was in the business when the business began in rebuilding torque converters in the late 50s, early 60s, right? So I was basically born into torque converters, and I've worked with some really good people. So they transfer power from the engine to the transmission. So I don't care what, John, forget about race cars. Let's just talk about cars. Your engine makes horsepower, right? It makes it by torque, excuse me, by the engine spinning and having a torque signature, right? It spins the torque converter. The torque converter then transfers power from the engine to the transmission via a hydraulic coupling, and what basically is a pump. Okay, I've seen this example a million times. I still think it's the best example. If you take an electric fan that you would use to cool your body off, like those old square fans, right, or round fans, and you got one's connected to an electric motor, and if you took another one and kept it unconnected, and you put the two of them together, you'd have one driven fan, and air would push the non-driven fan, if you will, and that's really the easiest way to explain how a torque converter works. The only difference between a torque converter and those fans is instead of having air, you have oil, and you have an oil pump, and the oil pump turns the impeller, which is connected to the engine, and that in turn turns the turbine, which is connected to the input shaft. That's the easiest way for me to verbally describe it. I think
that's a really good explanation.
Yeah, it is simple, easy.
Yeah. The best way to describe it, of course, is look at a video, and there are plenty of videos out there. There's a great video that I used to use in training from a company called Exity. They make brand new torque converters, and they make clutches. They're an OE manufacturer of for a lot of the import companies, and they did a video showing the oil flow of a torque converter, how it's got the steroidal flow, which basically means it goes up and around, and you've got a lot of force inside of a torque converter to do what it does. And the difference between the fan explanation and what a torque converter is you've got another two elements to a torque converter that those fans don't have. And the one element is known as a lockup. So just imagine there was a way to lock the two fans, right? So you had this imaginary device that would lock the two fans. Well, that's lockup. That means 1-to-1. What your engine RPM is what your drive shaft RPM. Right, and then the other key element is what separates the boys from the men. What separates the couplers from the torque converters, if you will, is what's called a stator assembly. And the stator assembly, in my mind, is the brain. It's the ECU. It's the cam. It's what's going to determine how the torque converter is going to actually operate. It's going to tell the torque converter when to transfer that oil, how to transfer the oil, how it's going to spin around. And it multiplies torque. Now, this is where it gets a little more complicated.
Well, let me stop you right there for a minute. What are the aspects of the stator that determine, how that relationship takes place?
Sure. So, the stator assembly is charged. The job of the stator assembly is to take oil that's getting thrown out of the turbine back into the pump. So it's in essence, the simplest way to look at a stator, and whether you're just a regular run-of-the-mill guy doing some street stuff, or you're the smartest, most well-educated tuner, I want you to think of the stator assembly as a nozzle, right? No different than a turbo, or a nitrous jet, or an intake. It's how that how the oil is going to be redirected. And so there are many factors. There are more factors that I even care to discuss. Blade count, blade curve, blade design, blade length, window size, blades. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. There are infinite amount of potential stator combinations or designs. And if I can take a minute and relate that to racing, when I first started this program back in the Revolution series that we became kind of known for back in 07, 08. I had made like 500 different billet stators, and not one of each. I had done like 5 or 10 of each, and it was an exercise in finding what was the best design, and we would test it, and we'd put it in, and better, like going to the eye doctor, better, worse, better, worse, better, worse, better, worse, better, worse, and we just got to what we felt was the best overall design for what we were trying to accomplish. But do the math on how many blade counts. Is it a 15 blade? Is it an 18 blade? Is it a 20 blade? Is it a blade pitch? Is it a 45 degree? Is it a 50 degree? Is it a 52 degree? Blade length? Is it small window? Is it a short window? Is it a long window? And all of those designs will determine how the converter is going to actually operate. Okay, and that's really where the magic is. Whether it be a stock torque converter or it's a high-end race converter, it's the stator that does the job. If we can take 2 other steps back, kind of shift to the side. I'm involved with lots of different companies. One of my vendors, one of the guys I do a lot of work with is Bonfante clutches. They are 100% market share for Top Fuel clutches. And they did some development work with me, and we're doing some more development work for our lockup deal. It'll be the best of both worlds. But we did some work on our aluminum back half bolt together EV1. And I learned a lot about a lot of things from them, but we're not much different. Everybody says, oh, clutch companies and converter companies, so that's like they're polar opposites. No, actually, we're the same. And when I talk about how torque converters work in performance cars, what I talk about is, look, if a torque converter, in essence, replaces the clutch in an automatic transmission, the job of a torque converter is the same as the job of a clutch. And if this was a race car with a clutch, you would have to have enough capacity. So if you can think about a torque converter this way, a torque converter replaces a clutch in an automatic transmission. A clutch has to have enough capacity for the engine power. So each clutch, I don't care if you've got a 900 cubic inch nitrous car or a 200 cubic inch, 2JZ, whether you're using a 5-inch 3-clutch setup or a 10-inch 7-clutch setup. I don't care what it is. At the end of that run, that clutch has to have enough capacity for the horsepower of that engine.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of simple, right?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, so listen.
Same thing goes with the torque converter. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to interrupt because one of our we have a lot of listeners and a lot of them are pretty smart. And one of our guys just said, so really, it's the relationship between the pump and the turbine that makes it work. Since you're on relationships.
Yeah. Oh, I got a little warm and fuzzy feeling.
There you go. Just trying to help, man.
Absolutely.
Just trying to help.
It's all about relationships. So that's right. It's the relationship between the pump. If you don't have enough capacity in your clutch, or now let's get off the clutches because who gives a shit about them? We dominate over clutches. Stop with that nonsense with clutches. But the torque converter has to have enough capacity for the engine, right? So then the stator assembly is really it's going to determine how and when you're going to transfer the power. It's the counter and the base. The stator assembly is the counter and the base of a clutch. It's going to determine what's it's going to flash to, how long it's going to take to couple, and that's really the key. That's the brain, and that's kind of what's probably set us apart.
Okay, so once you have the power handling capacity of the converter, the stator and the setup of the stator essentially delivers the curve of how the converter would work.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay. So certainly then the take apart converters were a huge advantage to this because you could change stators at a track instead of having to cut them apart and put them back together.
Well, that's kind of a slippery slope, and I'll tell you my stance on that. When we first came out with the Revolution Series converter, I had absolutely no inclination to make a bolt together converter. At that moment, I wasn't making bolt together converters. I wanted no part of making bolt together converters because, in my honest, humble opinion, I felt they were dangerous. I had seen lots of failures. I had seen friends, get burned down from nitrous cars and turbo cars, and the next thing you know, their converters split, and they weren't my converters. and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to do a bolt together. I had a pretty harsh stance on it because I just didn't feel I was safe. You know, we talk about this kid that came on before me, and you know, he had a fire, and yeah, I've seen some really nasty stuff. I think people forget how serious this stuff is, and I'm not that guy. I'm very ultra conservative and super safe, and I just didn't want to do it. And then I had gotten involved with Bonafonte, and he was kind of, you know, dude, everybody's doing this. You need to do this. And I'm like, I don't care if everybody's jumping off the bridge. I ain't jumping off the bridge. They're not doing it right, and the only way I can do it is this way. And he's like, well, I can do that. I'm like, get out of here. So here's what happened. Bolt-together converters are safe when done properly. We created what I call a safety bolt. It's a D-shaped bolt that gets indexed into the aluminum housing. It goes through the aluminum, go through the steel, and you get a steel-on-steel contact. That was very important to me because when you have a steel on aluminum contact, you're very limited to the amount of strength. And aluminum is going to expand at a much higher rate than the steel. And these converters were getting really hot. And if you take even the best aluminum, it changes its form at about 450 degrees. And I know these guys are running hotter than that. So I just wasn't having any part of it. But in this case, the way I designed it was it has a D-bolt. It puts the aluminum housing in compression. As the unit heats up, it puts it further into compression, and we don't have any problems. And you want to know what's really cool? About 5 months after we developed it, now bolt-together converters, and I'm not taking anything away from any of my competitors because you know I have great relationships with them too. I just didn't want to do it, but I had seen problems. But 6 months after we came out with it, NHRA ProMod, they mandated if you're going to use a bolt-together converter, you have to have a nut and bolt through design. And that was like I'm going to, for the rest of my life, I'm going to own that idea and own that fact. And I'm really pretty proud of that. I think that, you know, it's pretty cool to not just come up with cool products, but come up with safe products and find a better way to do it. So yes, when we started with the EV1 bolt together, we really, it did make it a whole lot easier. Like Greg and Seth Hunter was talking about, you know, they just changed it. You know, I sent them a stator instead of a converter. It did make it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I would imagine it could accelerate the learning curve and the testing process dramatically.
Absolutely. I want to tell you something. I learn every day. I mean, you know, everybody's, oh man, you know your shit. Nah, I don't know shit. You know what I know? I know that I don't know everything. I know that I don't know enough. I know that I probably know more than most, but it's nowhere near what I need to know. And that will never change. The day I know everything, put my ass in the ground. I'm done.
Gotcha. All right. Let's, from the stator perspective. Well, let's do this. It's how the stator works in the converter, how it acts on the opposite side, I guess the turbine side, correct? Now, these two components, as they interact, does one of those put you in range? Like you talked about clutch capacity, like what a clutch would handle or what a converter would handle. What sets the capacity of the converter for the stator to act on, or is the stator a load carrying component as well?
No, it's not the stator. The what sets capacity is the ability for the torque converter to absorb the power and transfer it back. Mm-hmm. So the stator is not in charge of capacity.
No, stator does the curve.
Stator does the curve. So I think what's kind of cool about what I did over my career compared to, let's say, some of my friendly competitors is that I had a pretty broad base knowledge about regular run-of-the-mill torque converters and how they were designed. And I had the great advantage of seeing lots of late model, the OE manufacturers in the 80s, they started going, hey, we need to pick up fuel economy. And how did they do that? Well, they did that. Well, they started with lockups, and then they started with, hey, we need to make a more efficient torque converter. We need to make our torque converters work better. Now we have fuel injection, and now we have electronic controls, and now we've got to be able to maximize every little thing. And the way they did that was through driveline. They didn't do it just with engines and volumetric efficiencies and fuel injections and map curves, whatever whatever they were doing to increase engine efficiency, they were also driveline efficiencies, and the torque converters were really a big part of that. And trust me when I tell you, they're nowhere near done. I mean, these 8 speeds with some of these torque converters that are coming out today, they're just unbelievable. 8 speeds and 9 speeds and 10 speeds, and that was probably, I would say that's probably one of my strongest assets, is that I knew about different types of torque converters. So when I went to develop some of this turbo stuff, 8, 9, 10 years ago, I had the benefit of understanding how they were doing it. I also had a great benefit in the fact that I had done some R&D programs for some of the OE manufacturers. We worked directly with Honda R&D of America to develop some torque converters. Some of the stuff that we developed back in 2003 actually made their production, which is cool. I had access to some computational fluid dynamics, which is still way over my head. But they dumbed it down, as Mikey said, and they taught me a couple things about high and low pressures in the torque converter and toroidal flow, which is the flow going up and around the torque converter, and that kind of helped me. So when we looked at data down the road, and it still helps me today, and we go, okay, what do we need this to do? Okay, well, this is how we do this. It's my racing experience is really dwarfed by my OE experience, right? Because I could never have done what I did if I didn't understand that. And yes, if you're into street cars, let's look at a 2017 car versus a 1986 car, and just how much power they make. Well, the torque converter its job is to transfer that, and the manufacturers became really good at that. So and I just became really good at exploiting that.
Okay.
I just took their technology and used it.
So as the capacity of the converter changes, okay, we've got the stator that draws essentially the curve of how the interaction takes place. Now,
yep.
The other components in the converter, how do they actually go about setting capacity?
Well, there are other. We talked about the volume of differences between stators, right? Like, blade count, blade curve, blade design, blade length, window size. Okay, well, now multiply that by 3, because you got the same thing going on with the pump and the turbine. So blade count, blade curve, blade length, blade design, blade skew, that's all going to determine how the converter is going to operate.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you start to do the math on one small change in one of those parts, your head starts to spin. If you changed 2 degrees in each part, it's going to change the converter. Oh my God. Let me give you an example. So one of the things that we do, besides blade count and blade curve, we've got a program that I'm pretty happy with. But one of the things we do for turbo cars when they're not spooling quick enough, we take the stator assembly and we throw it up on a machine on a lathe, and we take about 150 thousandths. We remove 150 thousandths off the back of the blade. It's 150 thousandths is nothing, but that will raise the stall speed about 200 to 300 RPM.
Okay.
So that very small modification helps it build boost quicker, helps the flash, but still doesn't change anything out the back. And that modification, you imagine one small modification and changing 200 or 300 RPM. Now imagine all the other potential variables on different stator designs. It starts to become overwhelming.
I could imagine, like, sitting here thinking about from the particular specifications of, or at least the variables in that one component, and now multiply that by 3, the variable stack up gets pretty crazy. It would be an awful lot to.
It does.
I could understand where data from customers really comes into importance. Huh.
It does. It's paramount. It's and we're talking about race cars, right? But that's I don't know what your listener audience is like.
It probably runs everywhere from the drag race turbo guy to the street, turbo or supercharger guys, certainly nitrous guys. some small motor import guys, some, big domestic motor stuff. It could vary. It runs across all lines, I think.
Okay, so let's hit on like some of the street guys, because race cars are great and that's cool, but let's talk about some street cars and how this relates to them. One of the things that we were able to do back in the day, and we're still doing it today, is we look at drivability characteristics, right? We were featured in, wow, this is going back a long time. In 1997, we had picked up a brand new Corvette, and it had 3,000 miles on, and I tore it apart. And we were featured in CarCraft and Motor Trend and all kinds of magazines because we built a 10.5-inch converter. It didn't have a lot of stall. It was about 2,400 RPM stall, but it took that car, and it would take 4 to 6 tenths off the quarter mile AT, pick up 4 mile per hour. It went from, wide open throttle from a dead stop, no tire spin, to fry the tires. It was a tire fryer. It was just fun. It made that Corvette just fun. And we worked with all kinds of really cool Corvette guys, Doug Rippey, Chuck Mallett, Callaway, Lingenfelter. I mean, just the coolest guys. And it just made the car better. And it was really through a function of taking an existing platform, the factory platform, taking that, throw it in the garbage, and making a brand new converter that had a higher torque multiplication rate and a better coupling efficiency. And we still do. I take that same, mentality today to pick cars up that I did 20 years ago. I was like, how do we make this car do what we want it to do? How do we make this thing fun? And we do it now with new Corvettes and new Camaros, and we raise the stall to 2,800 RPM, and the motor makes more power at 2,800 RPM. We multiply more torque, and they just feel better.
Well, let me, and I don't mean to stop you mid thought, but this is something that people have specifically asked about. You take the multiplication side. There are changes you can do within the converter to change the level of multiplication based on stall. Like, in other words, could you have, say, a converter that's stalled at 2,500 and one multiply more or less? But then there's got to be a trade-off. What's the other side to that?
Look, in that genre, that late model overdrive genre, there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of snake oil, and there's a lot of bullshit that gets thrown around that drives me nuts. Everybody's like, "Oh, well, I need a torque multiplication of 2.5. Well, I got a 1. Dude, you don't know shit about shit, because unless you got $1 million machine to measure it, you're just going off some derived number that you got from some paperwork from some GM guy. It ain't the same. It's bullshit. So I'm here to tell you, you guys tout that you get the real deal from the guys who are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who's telling you they know what the torque multiplication on a torque converter is without the equipment to properly test it is full of shit. I am not full of shit. I am here to tell you the truth. I can't tell you what my torque multiplication is because I don't have the equipment, and I'm hoping one day I can get it. But the right equipment costs probably somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million to do it. But I did have the opportunity to work with guys who had the equipment. So I do understand the range of torque multiplication. And yes, you can have a torque converter that has a higher stall torque ratio or a higher torque multiplication rate, but a lower flat. We can start to do math on and I'm not, listen, I'm not an engineer. I've worked with engineers. My wife says I have an engineer brain, but I'm not a classically trained engineer. And I know a little bit of math, but I don't know a whole lot of math. But if we start to talk about things like K factor and stall torque ratio, this will be 3-hour conversation. And at the end of it, most people will still be scratching their head, including me.
Gotcha. But the easiest way to say this is you could change multiplication factor without affecting some other aspects. Like it's
absolutely.
Got it. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
So there are some basic guidelines. The more pitch that you have to a stator, the less it'll multiply torque, and the higher the stall. So if I want to in a race car, if I want to raise the stall speed, that's the RPM at which you're transferring. Now this is important. So this is like the converter 101. Stall speed is the RPM at which you transfer power from the engine to the transmission under wide open throttle conditions. So if you take your foot off the brake, give it wide open throttle, the RPM will jump to a certain RPM, and then it will start to pull. That would be called flash stall. If you had a trans brake, you activate your trans brake, you wide open throttle, and the RPM at which it stops going any further is what would be called the trans brake stall, right? So stall speed is directly related to the amount of input torque and load of the vehicle. So the more power you make, the more stall you make, period, end of story. The more load you have, the more slip you'll have, end of story.
So that meaning load, vehicle weight, whatever variable you want to throw at that, but I would imagine the primary one would be vehicle weight.
Absolutely. Yes, weight, but also think about gear ratio. Like we do, we were on the phone with Mikey Reese, right? You got a ProTorque car, and the first thing we did and the first thing we talked about was, hey, what's your finish line RPM? He's like, what do you mean? I go, that's all I give a shit about right now. He goes, why? I go, because you want to make sure that the thing's geared right. So, and I don't care any car. If you want to talk about how I look at things, and the reason, and by the way, I know we got involved in this radio show because of, I think it was Matt Blasco, the drag week stuff, which I'd love to talk about next if we could. And that relates to weight and load, by the way. So I go, what's your finish line RPM? He's like, X, whatever X is. I go, well, what's max RPM on the engine? It's X plus 500. I go, well, dude, we got to get the finish line RPM where we talk about volumetric efficiency and we talk about where the engine RPM is the happiest. And you go, okay, well, it's 8,500 RPM is your max RPM, and it's horsepower per revolution. We want to have the highest average RPM. So we want our finish line to be at maximum RPM. And you go, okay, well, if we can go up in rear gear, well, then we can get more RPM. And if we can get more RPM, we're going to get more pulses of power. And I'll tell you what, I learned that lesson from one of the greatest minds in racing, and just a guy that I love. He's a dear friend of mine, and that's Job Spetter. This whole program really was developed with Job. And look, I worked with lots of other great guys, Don Bailey and Steve Petty and Shane T and Jamie Miller, and again, relationships. But I didn't learn this because I read it in a book. I learned this from working with these guys. And RPM is important. Load is important. So the more load you have, the more slippage you will have. So if I can just maybe shift into the drag week conversation, right? These guys, they're 4,000 horsepower with 2,000 pound trailers going 1,200 miles. That is a testament to endurance for sure. And that is a testament to products, not just mine, but to all of them. And yeah, those cars are much heavier than your traditional race car. They have much more load. What do we do with those cars? We typically tighten them up.
Okay. Now, let's talk about something here that probably a lot of the turbo guys and blower guys, for that matter, will all understand. When you have something with a varying torque output, like a turbocharger would be, I mean, you've got a guy who could conceivably leave it 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever his package is. Is there a way to get a converter that would allow, I guess what I'm trying to say, to allow the racer to be able to tune the amount of power output of the motor, and the converter will have essentially a more defined window no matter what sort of input is put into it? Is there one, I know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, if there's a way to make a converter that's better at running within an operating range over a broader range versus one that's really focused to do what it needs to do, but more of a general purpose.
That is a very intelligent question.
Sounded like shit because I don't even know if I could go back and read it to myself and get it right.
No, it is. Is there a way? Is there a way to tune the converter for the engine application that varies? And the answer to that is yes. And I want to, fine line between confidence and arrogance, right? There wasn't until I came on the scene, because everybody, back in the day, if you're a turbo guy and you're listening, right? Everybody wanted a converter that would spool, but still lock up out back.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was able to really accomplish that until we came on the scene. And we did. We basically did what you just asked for. Can we get it enough RPM on the launch, but still enough efficiency out back? And that's really about understanding the platform, the pump capacity, the converter capacity, and then designing the stator for that engine. I think Greg kind of hit it on the head. That EV1 platform is really versatile. We take that same pump and turbine, and this is going to answer your question right here. We take that same pump and turbine, and we have multiple different stators, and we can go from an X275 single turbo 300 cubic inch engine to a 1,000 cubic inch nitrous car, use the same platform, but use a different stator, and they both work. So, and everything in between, that EV1 platform, 526 Hemis, 900 cubic inch nitrous cars, that little mod motor uses an EV1. You go, wait a second, how is that possible? Well, the converter has enough capacity. We tune the torque converter with the stator design to match the engine capacity. To match the engine curve, not the capacity, because the platform is the capacity. That's the clutch capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the transfer. That's the ability to transfer power from the engine to transmission.
Mm-hmm.
It's the stator that decides where and how. So yes, you can do that, and yes, we are doing that.
Okay. Now I've heard, and again, I am not in the pro mod, pro boost life. I mean, so far removed from that, it's ridiculous. But a very dear friend of mine, Anthony DeSoma, that's what
Anthony is the man.
Yep.
Anthony was the first guy. Anthony was the first guy to 200s on 10.5, if I remember correctly.
Wow. I didn't even know that, actually.
Tad?
I said, yeah.
Okay.
Tad knew.
So you take something like Anthony's car. He was talking about the variety of different things, not just as simply as bypassing pressure from the converter, but is there also some, other things that are being done to try to modify the stall speed or spoolability of a converter and then make it change?
Now I'm going to be arrogant, not confident, because this actually kind of pisses me off sometimes. For close to 20 years, I've been screaming from the mountaintops, he who controls the pressure controls the game. And everybody thought I was an idiot. Well, I am an idiot, but for other reasons. Torque converter is a fluid coupling device based off of pressure and flow. And when we first came on the scene with this Revolution Series converter, everyone was like, they couldn't understand. And that torque converter is a pump. That's all it is. And there are so many variances in the way transmissions are built and the way you flow oil through, in and out of the converter. So I was involved with a guy many years back who did a patent pending. His name was Fred Brown, FP Transmissions, and his brother, Mike Brown, actually works for me. He's our lead customer service and tech guy, right? He's a great man. It's like, he's an older gentleman who's been in the business a long time, and he's really sweet, and he's really knowledgeable. He's got an engineering degree and a whole bit. I was involved with it back in the day, and they kind of shut the fluid off. They didn't do it the right way. So for years, I was like, hey, you got to control the fluid. And then I was working with a Ford engineer, probably in the early 90s, who basically told me I was right. But I wasn't in the transmission game then. I'm not in the transmission game now. I don't really want to be in the transmission game. I want to do torque converters. But they did this years ago, and I got to be careful about what I say because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But CAFE standards, they would basically modulate the fluid in the torque converter, reduce load with the car in drive, your foot on the brake, at a stoplight, and they would reduce pressure, and it would change the load, and their fuel economy would go up. And that's how I really understood what pressure and flow will do to a torque converter.
Yeah, because if you're reducing load, that means that you're changing the dynamic of the converter. You're changing how much force. Yeah,
absolutely. So yes, I was involved with a lot of different people, and I can mention some names. They're all really good guys. They're all super good at what they do. Dave Clayfoot from Proformance, Carl Rossler from Rossler Transmissions, Keith Neal from Neal Transmissions, Mark Mickey from M&M, and I apologize if I'm forgetting anybody else. But these guys have really, they've learned about it. I want to say, I was the first guy to do that, and maybe I was, and maybe I wasn't, but I know I was doing it a long time ago. And these guys have all started to really come up to speed on this, and it's kind of exciting because it's going to allow us to do things like we're doing things now with like the factory stock, the factory, like the Copo Camaros and the drag pack cars, and we're going to manipulate fluid and we're going to control the converter, not just with mechanical design, but hydraulically. And the turbo guys have been doing dump valves and spool valves, and they've been doing that for a while, but now they're really doing a good job at controlling it. So they're not just controlling it for spool up, but they're controlling it for down track capacity. So it is really pretty exciting stuff. I don't think we're anywhere near where we want to be, but we certainly are getting there.
Okay,
and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Hey, so one of our listeners just asked, and I think you might have just given the answer unbeknownst to us, but he was asking, so 10 years ago, a lockup converter would stall about 10% higher than it's rated, versus today it's like sub 5% slip. What was the change, and was it fluid dynamics that made that better?
No, it's ProTorque that made it better.
Okay, was it ProTorque that made it better, and if so, how?
I like this guy.
Yeah, I'm joking around, but yeah, listen. Let me try to clean up his question a little bit. Forget about lockup for a second. No, let's not forget about lockup. Let me describe what lockup is. Lockup is a term that's used for a torque converter that has a lockup clutch inside of it, right? And that lockup clutch, through a hydraulic signal, right, through a circuit in the transmission, applies oil to push a mechanical clutch on hydraulically, right? So oil pressure pushes the lockup on, and the pump and the turbine, which basically means the engine and the drive shaft, or the input shaft, are connected one-to-one. And we talk about the OE manufacturers, they had to pick up efficiencies. Well, they started making lockups in the 80s, or actually in the 70s. The Chryslers had a 727 lockup in 76. Oh, wow, I'm really getting old. I was working on that shit when I was like 12. We were building Chrysler lockups. I would build them all day. Anyways, I diverse. So lockups give you a one-to-one, and OE manufacturers started lockups to pick up efficiencies. It means that there's no slippage through the torque converter. You have a one-to-one engine to the input shaft, okay? Race cars don't use lockups for lots of various reasons, but we're working on lockup converters, and I'll tell you about that later. So efficiency. The efficiency basically means that the difference between engine RPM and drive shaft RPM is your efficiency, right? So if the engine RPM is at 8,000 RPM and your drive shaft is at 7,500 RPM, you are at a 5% efficiency, or 95% efficiency, should I say. So you had asked about turbo cars and efficiencies, and how do you get one that has enough capacity but still does what you want it to do? Well, 10 years ago we couldn't get that, but today we did, because we came out with this. And a lot of, and in fairness to my friendly competitors, a lot of these guys have kind of come up to speed, and they're doing the same things. They do a good job. I take nothing away from them. And I think competition breeds, and this is a super important statement, competition breeds success for the end user. So I'm all about everybody stepping up their game, and all the torque converter manufacturers really have stepped up their game over the last several years. If you remember, like when Kevin Fisher came out on the scene, and Proline came out on the scene with all these turbo cars, and like guys like Anthony DeSoma and Don Bailey, they came out and they were picking up like 2 and 3 tenths on turbo cars. We turned the turbo car world upside down, but it was about efficiency, because they were typically seeing like 15, 18, 20% efficiency, or inefficiency, if you will. And they were like, we're losing power, and they really were. They were losing power in the form of heat, and these converters would just burn it up. So to answer the question, what's the difference? Or how did you get these efficiencies? It's really about capacity. We can use this as a guideline. I think if we're doing things right, and if your listeners use this kind of as a guideline for their own cars, hopefully we can help a couple of people here. Efficiency, if we're a quarter-mile car and it's geared right, we should see low to mid single-digit efficiency numbers. So if everything's right, we should see 2, 3, 4, 5%. That's what the percentage of loss through the driveline, engine RPM to drive shaft RPM.
Mm-hmm.
If we're in the 8th mile, it's going to be a little higher. It's going to be mid to high. We want to see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% in the 8th. When the cars are working right and everything is geared right and the whole, like all the moons align, we're looking at 8th mile cars that are seeing single digit efficiency numbers. And that makes me pretty happy. So, now lockup. Well, if we're at 5%, the maximum that we're going to pick up is 400 RPM with a lockup.
Mm-hmm.
If we're at 10%, it's going to be 800.
Wait, I got to call timeout again. Can I? Sorry, man. But I got his question wrong. I misinterpreted. He wasn't talking about lockups. He was talking about just in general terms, how you guys got from 10% top end slip to 5%. What the changes were there.
Converter capacity. We found a converter that had better capacity. That's it.
Okay.
We just found a better mousetrap.
Right. You basically found a way to build more capacity, essentially more friction in the clutch so people could understand it, like more holding power.
More holding power. That's exactly right.
Yep. Okay. Got it.
Exactly correct.
All right. So back to the lockup stuff, because I am actually interested in this because this does add an aspect, some things that I've heard from these guys as far as like lockup, when they occur, how they occur, how aggressively they occur, if they can induce tire shake at a bad place on the racetrack. There was all kinds of stuff I heard, and I don't know what to believe or what's true or what's not.
Okay. So, let's kind of break it out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to break out street cars. Street cars, late model Corvette, late model, Camaro, Mustang. My favorite, the product I love is the Chrysler product, which is just awesome. They've got a multiple clutch, and when the transmission tells it to go into lockup, it locks up. They modulate the lockup to get what they need. And you eventually get to a 1-to-1 and it works great. And that's awesome. Okay. So that's the lockup in a street car. We'll step it up now to, lockup in street race cars, like the drag week guys. Right. There were some guys like Scott Kleppencher and, I can't remember, and I apologize, I don't remember everybody's name. The guy driving a '64 Nova wagon, it's awesome. The LSX motor with a 4L80E. The guy was running like 7s. You got Megan Taylor and her dad. She's got a 4L80E with an LSX motor and a Camaro. She's all over the place. This kid she's just awesome. She tunes her own race car. She ran 830s at drag week. She runs a 4L80E. She had a lockup in it. And again, same thing. Oil pressure tells the torque converter, pushes the lockup clutch on. You get a 1-to-1, no slippage, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so cool. We've got that. Now let's move on to race cars. Traditionally, race cars do not use lockups. That's how, we got converters to be really efficient, but everybody's always wanting more. So, and I'm not going to lie, I think that ProTorque as a company is kind of late to the party on the lockup deal, mostly because I think the jury's still out for me. And we're going to find out for sure because we're developing a lockup, should be out in the next 30 to 45 days. We should be testing in the next couple of weeks. And we are in a joint venture with Bonafante. We're taking the best clutch manufacturer and the best torque converter manufacturer, and we're putting them together, and we're going to make the baddest lockup torque converter that anybody's ever seen. That I can promise you. Again, I said I'm a little late to the party because there's a couple guys out there. Again, friendly competitors, guys that I love. Marty Chance is a sweetheart. The guy is a gentleman. Great product. Mark from M&M makes a lockup torque converter, and I think he's got a joint venture with ATI. They do a great job. I love what they do. I know Cone now has a lockup converter. And look, what other guy gets up and has an interview with and talks, about his friendly competitors' products? These guys do a really good job. I like what they do, and I'm late to the party. But as my friend Rob Bonavati says, it's okay to come late to the party with a product, but you better be the hottest bitch in town.
Mm-hmm.
And I can promise you, when we release this, it will be the baddest bitch in town.
Well, what are the aspects? What differentiates between, say, a drag week car that would? Well, I mean, I guess the easiest way to look at this is that a drag week car would never be utilizing the lockup function of the converter going down the drag strip, right? They would utilize it for driving.
Well, let's talk about what the lockup clutch converter in race cars have been doing. I think there's a time and a place for it. I've seen, I've seen the nitrous promod guys really pick up a lot, and I think there really is a time and a place for that. I think that the turbo cars, they kind of run like within a number of each other. I think that some of the blower guys are now starting to run a lockup and having some mild success. Fine line between confidence and arrogance. I want to stay really closer to the confidence side on this topic. The current cast of characters and products that are out there, I think that there are some. I don't want to say design flaws because I don't think I'm being fair to anybody, and I don't want to belittle what is a lot of work and a lot of energy these guys have put out there. But I think one of the design issues we can call is the lockup clutches drag. You put it in gear, they want to stall out. They have to use a looser converter just because they gotta lock it up sooner. So they're using. I've heard some tuners say it this way: a lockup works way better than a shitty converter, but I don't know that it's much better, if at all, than a really good ProTorque.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to put that issue to bed real quick, and I can give you some simple math to work on that. Like if our converters are 5% efficient, right, for shits and giggles, let's just say 5%, and 8,000 RPM, that's 400 RPM. Well, if you have a torque converter that's really like 10% or 15%, now you're talking about 8 or 1,200 RPM.
Mm-hmm.
That's really hard to lock up. And I'll tell you what, one thing I can promise you, it wreaks havoc on the engines. So you get guys that are busting everything.
And let's go back to that. That's kind of that's yeah. See, that's kind of specifically what I'm asking. Like, it seems to me that you're asking the clutch in the converter to be actuated by a hydraulic piston. To basically, at this point, I would think if you're trying to add force to go out through the, I'm trying to figure out how to say this properly. You're trying to couple all that power with a set of clutches inside a torque converter. Can they?
Correct.
How much can that overcome? Like if you have a converter that was slipping 15 or 1600, can you flick a switch and actually have it couple? Or is it not ever capable to generate that kind of holding force?
Well, I want to say to you that I have some experience to answer that, but I don't know that I want to answer it because I don't feel that I personally have properly vetted it out.
Okay.
I have seen data from other cars with other brands. I have seen some things I like. I have seen some things I don't like. I think if you try to pull a nitrous motor down 1,800 RPM, you're gonna throw the rods right the fuck out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
the indication I'm getting is the converter stuff today can potentially do it, but it just wreaks havoc on the engine.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it sounds.
Right, and I'm here to tell you I'm going to do exactly what I did for turbo cars for lockups. I'm gonna beat that bitch down till I own it. So we're looking at some interesting. First thing is, I believe there's a place for the lockup, but I think that the torque converter, it has to be independent of the torque converter operation. So my goal here is to have a torque converter that works independently of the clutch, which basically means, and we've already done some basic testing on this, that the torque converter the turbine assembly has to be free and clear of drag. And what we did and what we're doing is we're spring loading the clutches. And it's a patent pending design. Again, it's a joint venture. I'm not going to tell you what, where, and how we're doing it just yet, but you will know soon enough. I'm generally an open book, but on this one, I got to kind of keep it on the DL till we.
No, understand. We would never ask you to get into something that's something you're not comfortable with, and that's fine. More than fine.
So what we're gonna shoot for here is have the torque converter work independently of the clutch, and then activate the clutch. So if you got a good converter that's working well, and then it's in the right percentage range, not a big deal to drop at 400 RPM.
Yeah, icing on the cake, right?
Right. But if you got a super loose converter, you got to lock it up, at 35% just to get it to transfer the power. No good. So we want to I've heard from so many people, I want a ProTorque converter with a lockup. I want it to work like a ProTorque, but then give me that little extra at the end or right before the shift change. And so what we're going to look to do is we're going to look to try different materials, try to tune the clutch. We're also going to try to tune it with pressure. I can see somewhere in the future, very near future, we'll be able to modulate that clutch. So you'll have, our goal here is to have a continual slip model, something that we can slip as much as we want to. I had the great opportunity again, because I've got this relationship with Rob Bonifante, and we're working on a bunch of really cool products and projects together. And I got to go hang out in the Patron Top Fuel, hospitality suite, and also in the trailer. Rob's brother is Nicky Bonifante. He's the lead tuner on that Patron car. Jesse James, Alexa DeGeorgia, really, just super cool people. And that's the highest level of play, right? I mean, that's, there is no higher than that.
No.
And I get the great opportunity to see what they do with clutches on 10,000 horsepower and what they do and how they control that power.
Yeah, because they're essentially they're making a torque converter. Yeah. Well, I don't want to use that term because I guess there really isn't multiplication, is there? I mean, they're just holding the motor at a given RPM with the clutch.
Yeah, they're just bringing clutches.
I go, yo, bitch. I'm like, yo, bitch, I'm going to make you a torque converter for this thing. But no, they do not have torque multiplication. But they have so much force. They have so much power.
Sure.
They're intentionally trying to slip it until they don't want to slip it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, in my mind, there's no way we're not going to take the top clutch friction manufacturer in the world and the top torque converter company in the world and not figure out a way to control the slip. So what I'm telling you today, and we're going to put this on the arrogant side, is we're going to come out, we're going to make the best of both worlds. We're going to have the baddest bitch torque converter with the baddest bitch lockup, and it's going to dominate the market and change racing forever. There it is.
Well, look forward to that.
Just drop the mic.
All right. Well, pick the mic back up for a minute because there's one more thing I want to talk about. Specifically, like all the guys that are talking about Drag Week and spending a lot of time talking to Matt Blasco on a telephone and at Drag Week. Specific, I guess I'll use the term maybe build requirements for something that is actually going to see street use. I mean, is it much harder to do? I mean, do you only want to do them in lockups? Can you make a lockup for something other than a lockup trans? Could that be optional for a conventional trans?
Yeah. There's a lot of questions in that one question.
Sorry.
That's all right. Let me take one at a time because I've been at it since 5:30. Let's see if we can break that whole thing down.
Well, this will probably be the last question, so we'll go through this set, and then you're free to go. We're going to let you go.
Awesome. So Drag Week guys, I think there might be a place for lockup for them. I'm gonna reserve judgment until we complete testing. I love Drag Week. I think that's the coolest thing in the world. And for the street guys and for the race car guys, if you don't appreciate what they're doing, you just don't get it. So we have developed converters that work really well for those guys. I don't think a lot of those guys would spend the money. When you're talking about a lockup deal, you're talking about a pretty hefty investment. I do not believe that lockup is for everyone. I don't think that it's going to be, trickle down to all classes. I think that, you're talking about a torque converter that's probably in the neighborhood of $6,500 to $7,500. You're talking about a transmission that's in the neighborhood of $13,000, and then you're talking about, probably another $5,000 to put that shit in.
But you see, are we talking about different types of lockups? Because look, a 4L80 trans, that's a lockup from the factory.
And that's a lockup from the factory. The lockup we're talking about is really the Bruno Lenko and
right.
The TH400 and the Power Glide. I think they're making a Power Glide lockup, but the TH400. There are lots of manufacturers that do it. I mentioned them before. They took a TH400, which is kind of like the benchmark right now for drag racing or drag week racing.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a lockup circuit inside that transmission. It did not come that way. This is an aftermarket, superly heavily modified, super high tech, super expensive for your average guy transmission.
Boy, and I'm not trying to sound like a dick about this, but if they could do it in the factory trans, like in a factory like a 4L80, isn't it just a fluid path to establish a pressure point behind a piston to turn a clutch on? I mean, it wouldn't think that would be that so god awful difficult to achieve.
We had the on our show.
I mean, you're definitely smarter than your average bear. You're right. It's not that difficult to achieve, but we got to talk about the durability of the transmissions. I mean, we've got I know we're holding the record. It's called the Big Red Camaro. It's been featured in every magazine. We just went 256 mile per hour in some, half mile or mile race. I don't know. They do Pikes Peak. They do all kinds of crazy shit with this car. They ran 256 mile per hour with a 4L80E. That's got to be producing close to, I would think upwards of 2,200 horsepower. I don't know how much they actually make. So yeah, those factory lockup transmissions are coming along pretty damn good, but they're also not. I don't think we could put that behind 4,500 horsepower.
Right.
A guy like Larson or Tom Bailey or Jeff Lutz or any of those guys that are running in drag week, they're making way more power than 1,500 horsepower. That 4L. Now, will those transmissions continue to develop? I think they will. I think guys are doing a great job developing. I think it takes time. We're still using, I'm amazed sometimes, the bulk of the race car transmissions that are being used is a Power Glide from the 50s.
Right.
Or the 60s, so yeah, I believe what I'd love to see, we do a lot of work with the NAG 1s and Chryslers, and there's a guy by the name of, I'm going to lose Eddie Gregory from Southern Hot Rod in Louisiana. Man, they get these NAG 1s and Chryslers, these late model Hemis, they're handling 1,200 horsepower. It's a 5-speed. It's got a lockup. I can't wait until we really start to push on that really late model stuff, or if we, and put them in street rods, making 1,500 horsepower on the street. I think that's all well within the realm of possibility. I think it's all coming down the pipe really soon. I don't think we've even begin. What is a new Corvette making power? 700 horsepower, right?
Yeah, the 650 the way they come, but I think they're relatively easy to get to 7.
2017 Camaro is making, let's call it 650. What was it making? Way less than half in 1967.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, and in racing, we're currently using that 1967 transmission. So the 6L90 and the 6L80, they're handling 1,000, 1,200 horsepower now without any real big deal. I think that, it's like everything else in racing, we will continue to progress.
Mm-hmm.
And those transmissions will be, every day, and they'll be handling 2,000 horsepower. Will the 6L80 or the 6L90 handle 4,000 horsepower? No, but will it maybe someday? Sure. There'll be some jerks like me that will go, yeah, let's see if we can make this thing work.
That's going to be tough, man, because that's going to be the 5 pounds of shit in a 1 pound bag. Sooner or later, the componentry just isn't big enough. Physical mass.
You hit it right on the head. That statement that you just made is exactly what I use all the time. They're like, what do you do? I go, yeah, I'm pretty much the captain of putting 10 pounds of shit in a 5 pound bag.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good at it. And that's what we do with the torque converter. You're taking a 13-inch diameter converter and, we're making it 10 inches. And we're trying to get this 9-inch converter to handle, 5 times more torque than it's ever been designed to hold. So, yeah, thank God for ingenuity and really thank God for what's the word I always use?
Relationship.
No, not relationship.
Oh, sorry.
No, they did a study. They wrote a book about the most successful people in the world. And they all have similar qualities and similar traits, but the number one trait that they had in common, which I think that many of the race car guys and many of the people, the manufacturers and the people who are really involved and do this for a living, is this key word. They all are very defiant. And and that doesn't mean they're aggressive or they're argumentative. It just means that they all said, well, somebody said, well, you need to do it this way. And they go, no, you don't. Or why do you got to do it that way? And I think that's probably my number one asset, and it's probably my number one liability, is I am extremely defiant. I just don't like to be told something. I want to know it for myself, and I want to kind of find out for myself. And that's kind of what I did. And I think that we're gonna the same thing. Right now, some guy in his bedroom in his underwear is listening to this and going, "Don't tell me I can't make a 6 LED handle 2,000 horsepower. I do that tomorrow." So thank God for that, because that's how we have progress.
Yeah, and that's how there's evolution for sure. Somebody looks at something and says, "I can figure this out." No, I agree.
That's exactly correct. Thank God for those people.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Joe, this has been an informative show. I think there's still kind of a lot to go over here, but obviously we'll be here till tomorrow. I guess probably the only last thing that I want to ask you about, specifically for the 4L 80E stuff, and this is personal curiosity because that's something I'm looking at. Is there, how do I say this properly? Is there a particular style of converter you should start with? Like, let's say turbocharged LS engine. Is there a size range? Is there a particular thing that puts you in the ballpark? I mean, how would you go about handling that? Because, for instance, like a guy puts a 4L80 in a Corvette that has a normally aspirated, what could it make? 600 horsepower, regular, nice motor. Right. What, like 8 3/4 converter? Try to make it run. You wouldn't do that for a 1,500 horsepower turbo car, correct?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
Not at all. So, I could probably spend another 2 hours on this subject, but I'll try to cut it down as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So, one of the things that we do when we work with our customers is we don't sell anything off the shelf.
Okay.
Basically, you want to buy a torque converter. We say to you, okay, give me all of your specs. You can fill it out online. You can tell us all about your car online, or you can call in, and we're gonna write up all these specs. And I'm gonna get a snapshot of your car, and I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions that are related to what parts are in the car right now, and what's the usage of this car.
Okay.
And we're gonna ask you things like engine RPM. We're gonna ask you about cubic inch, transmission, gearing. What's the RPM range on a cam? What's the RPM? What's the power adder? Because each car, each engine combination, and I want to say this is really where we excel, is that we understand vehicle combination. You're not going to you're not going to say, oh, I'm going to slap this combination together, I'm going to buy some off-the-shelf shit. Because I can tell you right now, it ain't going to work right.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna put you into a product that's really kind of meant for your car. An example, we would never sell the same converter for a blower car that we would for a turbo car. The blower guys are gonna get mad at me right now, but those blower cars don't make shit in the way of power compared to a turbo car. Turbo cars make power exponentially.
There's a bunch of people with razor blades scraping stickers off a car now. They're all pissed off.
Well, it doesn't mean that you can't get a blower car to run, because you can. I mean, some of the fastest cars in the world are blower cars, so I'm not taking that away from it. I'm just saying that they operate differently, and a torque converter has to operate differently too. So if you're asking about, hey, I want to build and actually have a product line coming out right now specifically for what you just kind of laid out. It's called the LSXT product line. It's the LSX Turbo. It seems like to me every day I'm getting a phone call from a guy who says, I just took a 6-liter, truck motor out of the junkyard, and I'm putting a set of heads on an intake and a turbocharger, and I'm going to make 1,200 horsepower. I think you had a guy on here, Dave Kogan. I think, Tom, you know him pretty well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Dave's doing this like every fucking day. He's making 1,000 horsepower, in the blink of an eye, and they're driving this stuff on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And we're making a converter that's, more to the price point of where those guys want to be.
Yeah.
And I've been working on that with him to develop that.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty hard to tell somebody that, got a junkyard motor through 2 turbos they got from China on eBay.
Yeah.
Hey, look, your converter's going to cost you more than your car and your motor.
Yeah. Defeats the purpose.
So, yeah, we're working on that product line, and it's really, it's almost just about finished. We've already done some testing. So, but to get back to that question is, yeah, we're going to spec the car. Every car and combination is going to need something different. So, you're saying, oh, I got an LSX motor, I want to put a 4L80 in it. Well, you didn't tell me a lot of other really important things. I can take that LSX turbo and we can put a small single turbo on it, or we can put twin turbos on it, and it's going to make 600 horsepower, or it's going to make 1,200 horsepower. We can take that and you can say, well, I'm going to put it in, a 32 Ford that's 2,800 pounds. And, or you're going to tell me I'm going to put it in, a big pickup truck with 43-inch tires.
Mm-hmm.
They are really different. They're going to require a completely different torque converter. So I think there's no quick answer on what converter goes with what car.
Sure.
And
I guess probably the way that I framed that question wasn't particularly great, because like a torque converter housing, does it know if it's going in front of a 4L80 or a glide? I mean, like there is no 8 3/4 housing made for a glide or a 4L80, right? Like the housings, the base housings are all the same.
No, and I don't care if you work with ProTorque or you work with any of the other really good reputable companies. And there are really a lot of good torque converter companies. I've got some great peers with some great minds and some great manufacturing capacities, and I love the guys that we technically compete against every day. There is no quick answer. You got to work with a company that understands your vehicle. I don't care what that vehicle is. One of the things that we didn't talk about here is, I've worked on some crazy ass shit. I mean, we were doing the 2JZs back with Vinny 10, like in the 90s. We worked on 4-cylinder Ecotec dragsters. We have the fastest Subaru in the world, that little boxer Subaru that runs like 7s. So I've worked on like shit that I probably should have never ever worked on. I lost money all the way, right? But it was cool. It kept me happy because I wanted to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no quick answer. It's all about understanding what that engine, what that vehicle, what that driver needs. A guy who's driving a Corvette, you can't give him a 3500 stall because it's going to feel slippy. It's going to feel disconnected. It's going to feel sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want that. You've got to match the torque converter with the overall vehicle combination.
Mm-hmm.
You got to match the gearing. You got to match the weight. You got to match the engine, and that's about it. That's really about experience. That's really there's no chart. There's no table. There's no database. All I got is the shit that's up in my head. And there's no quick definitive answer that you can look up and go, oh, okay, well, this needs this style converter. No, we've got a bunch of different platforms that we can put our customers in and we know what works with what vehicle combination.
Got it.
That's what makes us good at what we do.
Perfect. Okay, well, do this. How can people get you other than Facebook? You know, what are the best ways to get in touch with you, to get your products, or to just talk to you to figure out what you think about what they're trying to do?
Okay, so I am a terrible Facebook whore. I mean, I'm the biggest media whore there is. Facebook has really become the place that we put a lot of our information. Our website sucks, but I'll tell you how to get to it. It's www, of course, ProTorque, ProTorque.com. All right. We're redeveloping that in the next, probably over the winter. The Facebook fan page, Facebook/ProTorque, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably, you're going to get the latest, the information. You're going to find out about what we're doing. You're going to find out about the products. That's probably where I've spent a lot of time and energy. That's the best way to find out what's new, and you can contact us there. You can email us at, sales@ProTorque.com. That's kind of simple. You can call us, 631-218-8700. What I might suggest you do is, if you're a race car guy, talk to your tuner, talk to your engine builder. The dealer network for us is really important. I love to talk to people about their cars.
Mm-hmm.
And they love to talk to to me about their cars. But sometimes that'll take an hour. Sometimes that'll take 2 hours. Sometimes it's 10 minutes. And I am hard to get on the phone. And so I would love to say I can speak to everybody, but the reality is I can't.
Sure.
And our dealer network becomes really important. You got guys, and I'm gonna bust off a bunch of names, like Shane T called here, and Jamie Miller and Steve Petty and Josh Ledford and that whole Pro Line camp and KBX John Kalibis and man, so many tuners, Patrick and Jason Lee and Scotty Gaudano and all these quote unquote tuners. And I apologize if I missed anybody. I'm rambling. It's a long day, right? So that's a great way to get a hold of me through them.
Okay.
It's a great way because they know our products, they know your combinations, and they go, oh yeah, you need a 1750 in an EV1, and because they know how it's going to operate in your car. So that's sometimes that's the best way. And you can always email or call, and somebody will get back to you at some point.
Perfect. All right, man.
That's it.
Okay.
Hey, listen, I really, really, really appreciate the opportunity to come on your radio show. So, thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I mean, thank you for coming on. And, the problem is that, and look, you mentioned him before, JC from ATI, great guy, great products.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But this transmission and converter thing to most of us gets pretty confusing, especially as the horsepower levels and capacities start to come up, and then you're introducing these other dynamics of lockup and what you can do with this and this.
That's what I was just going to say. They have the lockup in the Glide and the Turbo 400. Remember, he's making the cases with lockup fluid pads and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's just everything is changing. So it's hard for people that don't understand and really look at the torque converter and trans side all the time to understand this. Then it's always changing. But no, we really appreciate you having you on.
Hopefully we cleared some stuff up, not made it any worse.
I hope so. I think we did.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. We'll see you, Joe.
Take care, Joe. Be good, man.
See you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Bye.
Wow, there's a lot of information.
Yeah, no doubt. He was good.
There's still see, this is the problem when there's so many questions that I have that stem from the answers he gives. It is hard to do this. It's not easy. Tom, you awake?
I am. I am now.
I know it was long. Tad?
Yeah.
I know you tried to chime in there a couple of times. I appreciate that.
Well, no, when he started talking about the lockups, I was like, I remember ATI when he was talking about doing lockups in the Glides and in the Turbo 400s and stuff. So
yeah, and I mean, to me, just thinking about that, look, and again, this is because I probably have a little bit of a simplistic view. If they make these things for a 4L80,
right,
and they make them for a 4L60, or for that matter, an Allison that has a big giant set of clutches in it to make it work, I can't imagine that. Is it really that much harder than just getting fluid from point A to point B and pushing on the the piston that locks the clutch.
Right.
I mean, like when they're talking about Transit or $20,000, sure, because they're made to handle, I don't know, probably 5,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
What about the guy who would really like to use a Glide, but he wants to drive the thing? So he'd like a lockup. It can't be that hard.
No, it's not.
But that's just me.
Well, I was just looking on the ATI page. The lockup option on the Turbo 400 is $13,995.
Yeah, but I think that's real deal. Like your pro mod kind of stuff. Right.
The option's $13,000.
Well, that's the lockup option, and then you got $9,995 on 186 lower gear, blah blah blah, and then a 160 lower is a $13,000. That might be a 2-speed, one of the 2-speed turbo hydros.
Mean a Power Glide?
No.
Yeah, no, they make a 2-speed 400.
The 2-speed 400 stuff. Yeah. I don't know anything about all that stuff. I know I just got to get the yellow Corvette to go fast. What do we figure this thing's going to make now, Tom? What are we, right around 1,800?
14.
18. With the other turbos. We don't have to talk about that. These guys get
just so it dominates?
We're winning.
Got to.
All right. Well, we'll be back. We've got Proline next week,
next
right?
Monday. Yep, Proline.
Fantastic.
Eric Dillard.
See everybody then.